Glitch Mob, hello. Many of you know that I have written a book, and it is called Jokers Dressed Up as Kings. Came out last month. It's done really well. It's hit bestseller in a couple of categories. Also have the journal that kind of complements the book. Not kind of, but it complements the book. One of my aha moments was when I started journaling. So I know the importance of journaling, not just in your intimate relationships, but just in life in general. It's just important to journal. And it really helped me when I started to journal and I went back and I started seeing patterns. It helped me recognize some of the traits that I didn't recognize when I was going through the relationship. And it helped me write the book. So anyway, the book's called Jokers Dressed Up as Kings. It's about toxic relationships or toxic traits in relationships. And what I want to do is I want to take the next couple of weeks and I just kind of want to unpack some of these traits and just share with you some of my stories, some of the traits, hopefully help somebody that might be going through a similar situation. The way I have this book broken up, it's 6 chapters, and in each chapter I talk about different traits. And along with those traits, I share some of my story. For example, the first chapter, I talk about love bombing and grandiosity. Second chapter, I talk about devaluation, rage, intimidation. And then I go into isolation, financial dependence. And then I hit on triangulation, control. Then I go into feeling superior, lack of empathy, gaslighting. A lot of you are familiar with gaslighting, blame shifting, narcissistic hibernation, breadcrumbing, Hoover maneuver. And then I end with trauma bonds, which I think is something that we really need to unpack. It's a real thing, these trauma bonds. Pathological lying, coercion, and marital and spousal rape. So, these are serious topics, serious traits. They are all a part of what's called a narcissistic cycle. And some of you may have heard of NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. And it's something that actually has to be diagnosed. Now, for a narcissist to actually go to a doctor to get tested and diagnosed for NPD is likely not to happen. But what I want to share is traits that definitely point to someone being a narcissist. And this cycle, it is a manipulative cycle that I started recognizing. Unfortunately, it was more towards the end of my relationship. But when I look back, I noticed this cycle that happened for 13 years in my relationship. And it's patterns of just harmful behavior. And there's several different models. The one that I explain in my book is there's four stages. The first one is love bombing, which is what I'm going to touch on today. Then it goes into devaluation, then it goes into discarding, and then it goes into reengagement, or some people might call this hoovering or the Hoover maneuver. Then it goes back into the love bombing, the devaluation, the discard, the reengagement. And it's just this vicious cycle. And you get caught up in it, and that's what happened with me is I got caught up in it. And then I created this trauma bond with this person, which is why I stayed in it as long as I did. So now that I'm out of this relationship, I am working very hard on breaking those trauma bonds and healing myself so that I can, move on and learn and hopefully help other people. So let's get into, talking about love bombing. And love bombing, it's just that. It's when your significant other basically comes in hot, is the way I can explain it. They come in hot. You know, they're showering you with love and affection, buying you gifts, sending you flowers. They want to be with you all the time. They figure out things and people that you like, and all of a sudden that they like those things. They want to get to know those people, and they just engulf themselves in your life. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that love bombing is bad. What I say in my book and what I explain is that, because it feels good, right? It feels good when somebody comes in and they show you all this love and affection and attention, and it feels good. But what I'm saying with love bombing is that it should be a trigger in your head that, okay, this could be the beginning of a cycle. It could be the beginning of a cycle, which in my case it was. But when I was going through it, he was my knight in shining armor, and I would tell myself, this is just too good to be true. And I convinced myself that, oh, this is what it means to meet your soulmate. So, there's other signs of love bombing. If your significant other is pushing you to make commitments quick, if you're starting to say I love you quick, if you're starting to move in together quickly, these are all signs of love bombing. Complimenting you excessively, being overly possessive, wanting to know who you're talking to, who you're texting, and in a loving way. Like, remember, this is a love bombing phase. So everything it's good. You're not seeing any red flags. They're just making you feel really, really, really good. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. So when they love bomb you, it creates these rushes of dopamine, and it's like a drug. It's that feel good hormone. So of course you come back for more, right? Narcissists, they also tend to target people who are strong-willed, who are independent. This makes them look good when they're with others who are, like I said, strong, independent. They present themselves well. And a narcissist will look at someone with that characteristic and with that demeanor and think to themselves, ooh, they're going to make me look good. So we become targets. And it's a beautiful thing for us to be independent and strong and, an alpha female, right? But like I said, it makes us targets to these narcissists. And so be careful of that. So I talk about love bombing. I tell you about my experiences in the book. I find it interesting that the media, these shows that they have, I think, is it called 90 Day Fiance, or even like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, they portray these like fast moving, extravagant, love at first sight romances. And it bothers me because that is just a breeding ground for disaster. But the media portrays this as something that's that's good. So I think we have to be careful with what we are letting our younger generation watch also. I have a 16-year-old daughter who I've watched her go through relationships where I'm seeing all these traits. And these are kids that are in high school. So that scares me. So I think these are topics that we need to talk about and that we need to get out there so that our younger generation isn't getting swept up into this cycle of being in these toxic relationships that's going to end up hurting them down the road. So I talk about love bombing, and then I kind of go into grandiosity. So grandiosity it's kind of an interesting one. This is when everything to them is big. They create this sense of superiority, of almost just a very unrealistic uniqueness about themselves, that they are better than other people, that but that they have lots of money. Instead of, they might have $100 in the bank, but they're going to act like they've got $10,000 in the bank. They just puff things up. Sometimes I'll say, oh, that person's a 30%er. And I've heard it enough now where, like, I can almost pick them out. And a lot of you can probably do that too. When someone's talking and you can tell that they're just blowing things up a little bit, I call those 30%ers. But that is a trait of grandiosity, when they almost have to prove to other people that they're grand, and they're unique, and they're better than everybody else. And they kind of put themselves on they paint themselves into this picture where they're kind of a step above other people. And obviously, the personality trait of grandiosity is associated with NPD. A person exaggerates talents, capacity, and achievements in an unrealistic way. The person has grandiose fantasies. The person believes that they don't need anybody else. Person overexamines and downgrades other people's projects, their statements, or dreams in an unrealistic manner, basically talking down to them. A person regards themselves as unique or special when compared to other people. A person who regards themselves as generally superior to other people. Person behaves self-centeredly or self-referentially. The person behaves in a boastful or pretentious way. So these are characteristics of narcissism: exaggerated feelings of superiority, entitlement, self-importance, obsessive need for admiration, and a lack of empathy towards others. And one thing that I have in my book is I reference God's word quite a bit. He gives me knowledge and he gives me wisdom. He gives us all that. And in 2 Corinthians 10:17, it says, if you want to boast, boast in the Lord, not yourself. Right? So those are, two traits: love bombing, grandiosity. They, could be red flags. It's something to look out for in your relationships. If you're with somebody who's coming in hot like that, who's big, their personality is big, and that can be a red sign, and that could be step one in the vicious manipulative cycle of narcissism.